Lex on the record.
Welcome to the very first episode of Lex on the Record. I'm your host, Lex, and I am so excited and incredibly honored that you're here for episode 1. On this podcast, we're pulling back the stories history tried to bury, the stories that were never given a spotlight, especially the ones shaped by Black women whose brilliance and bravery have been overlooked for way too long. So let's get into the story of the spy who used silence, intelligence, and invisibility to bring down the Confederacy from the inside. This is episode 1, Mary Bowser's Spy in the Shadows. Let's go ahead and rewind for a moment because Mary Bowser's story doesn't just start with espionage. It begins in silence and in shadows. Think about this. It's Richmond, Virginia. There's a young Black girl born into slavery, but she has a mind that is far too sharp for the world that she was forced into. People around her noticed something pretty early. The little girl watched everything. She remembered everything, always putting pieces together. She moved around quietly and carefully. And then, of course, the country begins to fracture. There's whispers of war that turn into, the nation beginning to split apart. Families, cities, entire states were choosing sides. But while the world was distracted by the chaos, Mary was out developing a secret weapon no one could see coming. A memory that was so remarkable, it bordered on supernatural. Enter Elizabeth Van Lew, the daughter of the family that enslaved Mary. But this woman was hiding her own dangerous secret. She was a devoted Union loyalist, operating silently behind Confederate lines. But Elizabeth didn't just see potential in Mary. She saw brilliance, a spark that she knew if she nurtured could become something world-changing. So she made a decision that honestly it could have gotten both killed. She decided to send Mary north to be educated, but not just to read or write. She wanted Mary to learn how to think strategically, to analyze, to master information and prepare for something bigger than either of them could safely say out loud. And by the time Mary returned to Richmond, she wasn't just educated, homegirl was prepared. She was prepared for a mission that was whispered about in the dark, that allowed her to step into danger with nothing but her intelligence as a shield. All right, so this next part is where Mary's story starts to shift from remarkable to honestly, it was just downright unbelievable. So at this time, Richmond is crawling with Confederate soldiers. There's secret police, there's informants. Every corner is essentially a trap to try to find someone that is connected to the Union. And right in the middle of that danger, Elizabeth, the girl whose family owned Mary, she was quietly building one of the most effective spy networks of the entire Civil War. But our girl Lizzie, she had a problem. She needed eyes and a mind inside the Confederate White House. The one place where being caught didn't mean prison, it meant death. And Elizabeth, she chose Mary, a Black woman with essentially a photographic memory, and someone the Confederacy would never suspect. So Mary steps into the role of a quiet, uneducated maid, and this role will allow her to become basically invisible. And in espionage, invisibility is deadly. Now, imagine this. Mary walks through the front doors of the Confederate White House, a place where every conversation is classified, every document is sensitive. Every man in the room is fighting to preserve slavery, including her own. And yet, there she is, dusting shelves, serving food, cleaning dishes, moving silently through rooms thick with secrets, while the most formidable men in the Confederacy, they're just speaking freely, okay, right over her head as if she wasn't even there. But here's the twist they never saw coming. Mary didn't need them to talk to her. She only needed them to speak near her. She would just glance and take a little peek at a map, a war memo, a letter that was only meant for the president at the time, Jefferson Davis's eyes. And seconds later, the entire thing was stored in her mind with perfect accuracy. Think about that. Jefferson Davis who is drafting the future of the war, and the person memorizing his plans is standing 3 feet behind him, pretending to dust. Every day, Mary walked into the house. It was a gamble, but Mary never flinched. She just kept listening, kept memorizing, kept slipping vital information back to the Union through coded messages and back channel networks. And with every secret she delivered, the Confederacy lost just a little more ground. Mary Bowser wasn't just inside the room, she was writing the war from the shadows. Here's what made Mary's mission possible, and honestly, what made it brilliant. The Confederacy never imagined that a Black woman in their household could be the one unraveling their secrets, their plans. They allowed their prejudice to blind them, and Mary, little smart cookie, she used that blindness like armor. In that house, she blended in effortlessly. No one questioned her presence, no one watched her closely. They simply assumed she just wasn't paying attention. But she was paying attention to literally everything, every map, every letter, every whispered conversation. Mary gathered intelligence from the spaces others basically ignored, the quiet corners, the casual moments, the places where secrets slipped out. Through coded notes and covert drops, Mary fed a steady stream of information to Union leaders. Intel that helped shape strategy and anticipate Confederate movements. A Black woman born enslaved, operating at the center of Confederate leadership and succeeding in a role no one believed that she was capable of. Low-key kind of sounds like what we have going on today, but what do I know? Mary proved that impact doesn't always require recognition. Sometimes the most influential work happens quietly in places where no one thinks to look. And Mary's story should have been one of the most famous in American history, but here's the truth. We only know fragments of her life. And after the war ended, Mary destroyed her own diary. She knew that if the wrong person were to find it, it could put others in danger, people who were still living under the weight of the conflict. So, because of that choice, we don't have her full voice. We don't have her detailed memories. We don't have her account of pretty much anything she saw or what she survived. But what we do have are pieces, mentions and letters, notes from people who worked alongside her during this period, just small records that hint at the scale of what she accomplished. And even from those pieces, it's pretty clear Mary played a role that was far greater than history has ever given her credit for. She wasn't just a spy, she was a strategist, a thinker, a woman who used intellect, courage, and precision to influence the course of the Civil War. Her work helped save lives. Her intelligence shaped decisions. Her bravery set a standard few could ever match. Yet, her name was almost lost. Her story was nearly erased. And that's why telling it now matters so much. Mary Bowser deserves to be remembered not as a footnote, not as a rumor, but as a woman whose actions changed the direction of a nation. Mary Bowser's story reminds us that history isn't just shaped by the people in power, it's shaped by the people with courage to act when everything is at risk. She used intellect as her weapon, she used opportunity as her strategy, and she used her voice to help shift the course of a war. And today, we finally get to say her name with the recognition she deserved all along. To everyone listening, thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up for the stories that often get overlooked, stories that deserve light and that deserve space. If this episode taught you something, or made you curious, or just made you proud, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share Lex on the Record with someone who needs to hear it. This is just the beginning. We have so many more voices to honor and so many more stories to bring to the light. I'm Lex, and this has been the first episode of Lex on the Record. Bye.
Stay bold, stay kind till we meet again. This is our history, our power, our pen.